Cutters, Degrassi, Unpopular Opinions. Hey there, Heather Ho, there's Jeff Cutter Diamond. Welcome me to yet another Cutter, Degrassi, Unpopular Opinion. And as you should know, I do tons of unpopular opinions based on, season 4 with the Rick Murray storyline. And I like Degrassiisms too. But this one, I kind of had a little bit of an inkling about. Now, I did this Reddit post a couple of weeks ago, and for context, it's being taken on October 1st, 2022. And I wrote, unpopular opinion, the biggest thing that bugs me about Rick in Time Stand Still is how he fell for Jay and Spinner's tricks twice. This is what I said. Yes, he did take retaliation after being dumped in the dumpster by spray painting cars, trying to get Jimmy off the Quizball team to no avail, being creepy towards Emma, taking a gun to the school, shooting someone, and dying by his own gun. All by mistake. But what bugs me the most was how and why Rick believed Jay and Spinner's bullshit, not once but twice. The first time was when Jay and Spinner told Rick everything's cool when they were doing Whack Your Brain, when in reality they just wanted to push Rick off the scent of their paint and feathers trick, and obviously waited for Jimmy to exit the bathroom so that they could talk to Rick mano a mano and fool him, which they did. And second was when Spinner blurts out Radish knows, and Jay says about Jimmy, ... and then leads Spinner to Rick's paint and feather mess and concocts an idea to blame Jimmy for everything, thus breaking off Rick and Jimmy's friendship and possibly getting Jimmy back on their side of things. Rick believes them, takes the gun from his locker, shoots Jimmy, and then conveniently sees Emma and wants her to pay for shutting him. I don't know what was in Rick's head to not suggest that maybe, just maybe, Jay and Spinner were lying about things, and also with the fake apology during Time Stand Still Part 1, especially when they were the main tormentors of him. Also, now, it doesn't mean that Rick would have taken the gun to Spinner and Jay, but I felt that because he was going to get his answers by Radish, referencing a deleted scene, he might have let his guard down. I don't know. Maybe I'm not reading this vibe right, but someone will tell me Rick's thought process falling for this crap twice. Have at it. So, yeah, it was season 4. It was Rick coming back to the school, and everyone was upset that Rick was back at school, no questions asked, because of what he did to Terry. So, in Time Stand Still, Rick gets put in the dumpster by Jimmy and Spinner. I originally thought it would be Jay and Spinner, because I'm like, Jimmy couldn't be that evil, but he was. I'm like, fuck! So, when you look at it, it's going to be the simple fact that, this just can't be right. So originally I thought that Rick, just a few minutes maybe later, decided to find spray cans. Found spray cans in the dumpster and then spray painted everyone's cars. But then I soon learned that it was the next day because he had a different shirt and combo and didn't have any effects from being dumped in the dumpster. So he circled and X'd everyone's cars. His tormentors and all that. Of course, Alex thinks that Rick did it. I think in a way she was trying to get Rick into trouble. I don't think she had any proof it was him. Jay wants to go to Raj with it, but Sean tells him that you can't do that because then Jay will have to tell Raj why potentially Rick did this. So Jay would have to incriminate himself. So he says, screw it. We can't do that. We have to find a plan. And it doesn't help Jay, Spinner, and Alex that Jimmy, who's basically been on their side the whole time, actually ends up being turned by Rick onto his side because Rick tells him that now that he's getting tormented and not Jimmy, and Toby's now being tormented. He knows that Toby's being attacked by Spinner, Jay, and Alex because Toby is Rick's only ally, it seems. So Jimmy switches sides. You can kind of guess that Spinner, Jay, and Alex were pissed off that Jimmy was not on their side. Not even Paige was on their side anymore. Paige backed off. So Rick thinks everything's okay because of the tiebreaker. He gets the team to a tiebreaker situation. And then all of a sudden, Jay and Spinner talk to Rick. Well, once Jimmy leaves the bathroom. Before they're ready for the tiebreaker. Jay and Spinner says, well, how do you know about these facts and all that? And Rick says, well, I read a lot and all that. Says, dude, you're a machine. Are you going to do the tiebreaker? Affirmative. You should. Everything is cool, Jay says. And Rick smiles and leaves the bathroom. However, Jay and Spinner then concoct the paint and feathers plan. And Spinner, of course, says to Jay, I don't know if this is going to work. Will Alex do her part? Dude, that's what you get for dating the vice president of student council. No one asks questions. So the simple fact is that, you know, they knew that if they had Rick believe their BS, then Rick would not see the paint and feathers coming, which obviously he didn't. Even though he won the competition and Degrassi won everything, boom, paint and feathers go down, he gets laughed at. Emma tries to calm Rick down, but Rick wants to steal a kiss from her. All that. Rick goes back to the school with his paint and feathers stuff on. I still say if he wore adorable outfits, I think it would have been huge. That's the biggest thing with Rick, is like, if he wore a normal outfit, I think he would never have believed, well, that would not have given Spinner and Jay the opportunity to go after Jimmy via Rick. Of course, the second time is when Rick decides to clean himself up after realizing that Paige was not behind the whole paint and feathers thing, and that Raj was probably going to help him out. Referencing the deleted scene in which Spinner gets in trouble for clucking at Rick's outfit and getting in trouble with Raj, and of course, Snake not being too happy with Raj's trying to leave him high and dry. So basically, Snake not happy about that. But the other point was that when Spinner goes, dude, Raditch knows. And then, is it about Jimmy? Yeah, I don't know about that. And then Spinner's like, what are you talking about? Look at the sink. Look at the feet and all that. And then they basically talk up that Jimmy was the inside man the whole time. Rick believes their bullcrap and decides to shoot Jimmy, despite the fact that it was obvious that Spinner and Jay were trying to get the heat off themselves because all that. And it would not have been that way if Spinner, well, when you look at the Raditch knows line, if you look at the deleted scene, it's like, yeah, Raditch knows and now wants to talk to Spinner after school. But with the deleted scene not knowing and not in the finished product, then you'd be thinking, well, how else would Spinner said Raditch knows? However, Spinner did brag to Jimmy about it, and they had a literal fight. Like, are you nuts? Spinner, why would you brag like that? And then, you know, Jay is basically trying to help Spinner out. The only problem is, of course, you know, all this stuff. And Spinner does put two and two together. He's like, oh my God, when Jimmy got shot, we told Rick that Jimmy did it. I have to tell someone. And Jay tries to calm Spinner down by saying, you don't have to tell anyone. He's my best friend. Either outcome, he was your best friend. And, well, Jay was right about that. Like, Spinner had instant remorse, but that still doesn't excuse what he did and all of that. But, of course, the thing that bugs me is, why would Rick, in as good as a critical thinker as he should be, why would he fall for it twice? I didn't get too many people, but there were some good comments. Okay, said, you're expecting an adolescent boy with known anger issues to rationalize how he's being lied to after being humiliated again? Well, okay, but the simple fact is, you never know. Like, Rick's way of thinking could be a lot different than what we're all anticipating. I Heart Randomness said, I'm assuming that if you are far gone enough to bring a weapon to school to attack your classmates, you aren't thinking clearly. Jimmy only recently became his friend, and as early as the beginning of part 1, he's also bullying Rick by putting him in the dumpster. I could understand why Rick fell for an emotional state. True. That does make sense about what this person is saying. I'm assuming that if you're far gone enough to bring a weapon to the school, you aren't thinking clearly. Well, yeah. I mean, you aren't thinking clearly when you decide to go to the school with your dad's gun, which you think would easily be locked up and Rick would not have access to, but how Rick knew about it and how, I guess the dad didn't lock it up, you don't know. I think the dad really felt bad, and in a perfect world, he would be in trouble for the fact that his lack of gun control. So that doesn't mean like Rick's dad would go to jail. I think Rick's dad would be in deep trouble and have a heavy fine and all that. But, you know, Accomplished Cup, who's one of my best contributors, said, quote, I think that one thing that annoys me is how no one seems to realize that Rick believed that Jimmy was a part of it so easily because Jimmy bullied him so often. He probably would have ended up shooting Jimmy anyway. Similarly with Emma, he wanted to shoot her for leading him on because she was nice to him after bullying him. I think Rick would have snapped eventually. Yeah, I get it. I get the philosophy of accomplished cup. Yeah, it just gets on my nerves and all that. Because simply put, I mean, how would you not how would you not question yourself that maybe Jay and Spinner, who were tormenting him from day one when he came back to the school, aren't just lying to make themselves look good and making Jimmy look like a scapegoat. Yes, Rick knew that Jimmy tormented him, but Jimmy turned the corner. I suspect that, Rick was questioning himself. Okay, fair enough. But I mean, if Rick was a concrete thinker like everyone thought he was, then why would he be easily pushed aside by Spinner and Jay? You don't know. But the one thing I do want to say about the Spinner and Jay situation is that Jay had no sympathy for Rick. Okay, fair enough, because of what Rick may have done to Terry. But Jay had no involvement in that in the first place. Like he wasn't deeply involved with the thought process with Rick and Terry. Spinner and Paige had good reason to get angry with that because of the fact that they knew about the abuse and all that, and they both blamed each other and themselves for why Terry was with Rick at the time, and then Rick pushed Terry on the head, pushed her down, and gave her a coma. Alex, I can understand because of the simple fact that Alex has had personal experience with her mother being hit by abusive boyfriends, and they have to live in women's shelters. That I get. But Jay had no previous experience. I guess maybe because Alex was his girlfriend and he was trying to help her out. Okay, admirable in a sense, but Jay was just there to push people's buttons. I mean, he was the guy that we really hated. He was like what they say, the devil on everyone's shoulders. Getting Sean to abandon Emma for his candy bandits. Trying to push Spinner and Alex not to tell about the pain and feathers, which failed miserably because Spinner admitted under guilt and dragged Jay into it, which was great. He got JT to deal drugs in season 5 to pay for trying to deal with his kid. He got Emma to go to the ravine with him. And he even was pushing on Manny's buttons in season 7. Jay was a bad guy and all that. Well, I know that everyone's saying, well, Rick was the bad guy in this situation. True. But if Rick hadn't brought a gun to the school for revenge, Jay obviously would be the #1 villain in this storyline, bar none. Because Jay had no qualms, he had no guilt, nothing. And, Spinner did. At least Spinner had some guilt, and at least Spinner acted on his guilt. Although, going to the hospital, not saying anything about his involvement with hurting Jimmy, well, that could have alleviated things. And who knows, maybe Spinner would not have been found out. But yeah, Spinner did the right thing. I just think Rick didn't do the right thing by believing Spinner and Jay's bullshit. Even if it meant that Spinner and Jay would not have been shot at by Rick. Poor Rick. I feel for him in that sense, but he brought a gun to the school, so I can't give him sympathy. End of story. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'm Jeff Diamond.